The
everything.
psychology of trading is very important. I went through a lot of emotions when I was day trading.
China's such a massive place that you can go to a desert, and then you can go to the snow where it snows on the beach, and then you can go to like mountains. The ultimate dream that I've got is to follow the Formula One calendar. Welcome everyone to today's podcast. We have here Bobby with me. My name is
Hey.
Dave. A lot of people call me DC. And today we're covering the topic of remote work and living. This is a bit of a close to the heart subject for me because it's something that I'm quite literally doing at the moment. It's something that I always wanted to do. It's been a dream for a very, very long time. And living the dream as such does come with its ups and downsides. And I think that's important to talk about, especially with so much noise and content recently from different people. I've seen so much content. I don't know about you, Bobby. I've seen heaps of content lately about people, specifically for me, it's Australia. So people leaving Australia and going to live overseas. Is that something that that sort of hit your algorithm as well, or?
Yeah, within the last like 10 months, there's been a
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I noticed there was quite a lot of it recently. There's this guy who kind of blew up, even got onto like the news in Australia. Apparently, I didn't see the news, but apparently he was on. His name's
Enemy
Matt.
number one.
Yeah, basically, yeah. His name's Matt Cameron. He's a really outspoken dude, and he moved to Bali with his family, and basically sold everything that he had in Australia. Big on property, sold it all, moved to Bali. Now doing property developments in Bali. And I've seen other people, especially on a few other podcasts that I watch, who have been talking about leaving and have left Australia to go to places like Thailand, Vietnam, basically Southeast Asia, around the same sort of region that I'm in. And I found it really interesting that it's become like a bit of a thing now for people in Australia. And I was kind of curious if this like momentum is something that's happening around the world with people leaving Western countries to go to Eastern countries. So I'm kind of curious if you've heard of a lot of people or anyone really in America doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I've heard some people in America doing it. More so Canada. I've heard a ton
Oh.
of people in Canada are trying to do this right now.
I wonder why. I wonder what the point of Canada is. Maybe something political, kind of like Australia. And I'll cover these points one by one, but I'm kind of curious about Canada. Why would you leave Canada? And I think a lot of people ask the same question. Why would you leave Australia to go overseas? What's better overseas than living the dream of Australia? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
Sounds
don't feel
very
free
similar.
anymore from what I've heard.
Yeah, sounds very similar to Australia, where a lot of people now are leaving because of primarily tax concerns. For me, I guess, and I'll start this sort of story time, and I have some notes in my little book here to stick along to. And before I get started on that, our good friend Ash does say sorry he couldn't come along to today's podcast. He unfortunately is well, unfortunately for us, I guess, is busy moving house. So all good. We'll take the reins, Ash, and keep the show on the road. So the story time that I had today is sort of the whole reason around why I left Australia in the beginning at all, or in the first case. So like why would I leave Australia? Something that I was sort of talking about before. A lot of people are leaving because of their freedom. They want more freedom outside of Australia. And there's ironically some of the least free places in people's minds are substantially more free for foreigners than they are for maybe the native population of those countries. For me, that is
Yeah, what I've
certainly the
heard from
case.
people who have moved is the quote unquote free countries are now being less free, and the more oppressive countries in the past are becoming less so.
I agree. I think so, absolutely. So I guess that the main reason I left Australia in my instance is that Australia for me was a place that I couldn't, that there's two main reasons. One is that it was too expensive to build my business, solely focusing on building that business. It was basically impossible. The second reason is because of my wife. My wife is from the country that we're living in, and I'll talk about where that is soon. And we had been planning to travel for a very long time, got stuck in Australia in the lockdowns of the whole COVID thingy, and we couldn't leave. We weren't allowed to leave, which was less than fun. So we kind of got stuck there. So the question then is where would I move to? And we did have a few options on the table to begin with. Like a lot of other people in Australia, we could have gone to Thailand, and that was one of the main other choices because it's not too far away from where I live now. The other options were China, Vietnam, Singapore, and we highly considered Japan. But in the end, it was too hard with visas, specifically for my wife and not so much for me. So in the end, we decided to move to China. So before moving to China, way back when we were stuck in Australia, we did purchase a property here. For the whole reason of that, we would come over here for a few years at least, and then probably rent it out after that, or figure it out from there what we would do. As an Australian, property in China is very cheap compared to Australia. So an example would be a property in Australia is these days roughly 500,000 for a cheap one, whereas over here it's like about 150,000, maybe 300,000 if you want a really good one. Um, so it's the difference in price there is something that really stands out. So why would I specifically move then to China? Well, the main reason is this is where my wife is from. So she has family, friends here. I have family and friends here. It seemed like a natural place to move to for a period of time. The main reason, though, was the cost of living. So, as an example, if I was in Australia, per week, I'm looking at a couple of $100 probably on living expenses, not including rent. In over here, including my repayments on this property, if I was paying it off, I actually bought it outright at the time. If I was paying this off, I would probably be paying around $100 to $200 a week in mortgage repayments or rent. And in living expenses, I pay around 500 Australian dollars per month, which is cheap. It's very cheap. So to be able to build my business was something that I could absolutely do. And in the end, I built the business. I got that running. I worked through each of the things. I worked very hard to get that business up and going and off the ground. And I ended up working towards then building additional wealth, which is something I'll talk about in maybe another episode. The work that I did and the type of like when you go to a new country, there's a bit of a honeymoon period. And this is something about just it's true remote work and living, and something that I've talked to a lot of other people about who've said the same thing, which is you go to another country and there's like this honeymoon period where you're like everything's new and shiny and fun and you get to discover. And that lasts for me, if you're living in that place, around 6 months. If you spend 6 months somewhere, you learn pretty much everything you need to know about it. After that, it becomes a bit more of a okay, I need to probably get my shit together and work towards an actual goal of living and making money, and because we're all slaves to the dollar, unfortunately. We need to make that money to survive. None of us I'm certainly not, raised with a golden spoon. I have to work to keep the things that I like to do. So the work that I did after those 6 months of doing basically nothing was, like I said, starting a business. That business is primarily a coaching business. I won't go into details because this isn't all about advertisement. Um, the main thing, though, that I really enjoyed or have enjoyed so far about living overseas is A, obviously things are cheaper, but also in Southeast Asia, things don't really close. So, as a comparison to Australia, everything sort of closes at around, at the latest, 9 p.m., but in most cases, 5 p.m. Most businesses, shops, retail, everything close about 5 p.m. The restaurants stay open till about 9. There's not much going on. Whereas over here, I can go to a shopping center at 4 a.m. in the morning if I really want, and they'll still be going. They're 24/7 pretty much everywhere, which is wild. Except for cafes, which ironically don't open until about 11 o'clock in the morning. Whereas
That
in
is kind of
Australia,
strange.
it's weird, isn't it? But they close
Yeah.
at like 10 p.m. So it's a bit weird. But anyway,
So where do you get your morning coffees? The more there
from the kitchen, I go and
from the
make it.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like one of the first things I did after realizing that coffee shops don't open super early. Which they do in Australia. They open at like 4 o'clock in the morning in Australia and they close at like
Yeah,
midday.
that's how it is here in America too.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a
So
bit
do
of a
they
shock.
generally have like later lives? Like they wake
Yeah.
up later, they go to sleep later, and all that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they mostly start work at about 9, whereas in Australia I would probably start at about 7:30 or 8 in the morning, depending on which time zone I'm working with, and finish around 5. Whereas here they'll start at 9, work through to lunchtime. They'll get probably 2 hours lunch, and then they'll work continuously until around 6 or 7 p.m. So the time zones are just very different, and I won't get into like the full realm of how people work here because it's not something I've personally experienced. So I can't really talk too much about it, but I have seen some pretty interesting work life arrangements here, especially with the kids in schools. They go hard here at school. So yeah. So that's sort of the work I did, and once I got the business going, I was paying myself a pretty small wage, way more than enough to get around over here, but to sort of build a bit of wealth and work towards my next investment goal, which was another property, one at the Gold Coast in Australia. The lifestyle that I liked though, and what I was sort of about to get to before, is that when you're working for yourself, you need to have some serious discipline, which is something that I feel like a lot of people don't have. And a lot of the people I've talked to in this space tend to stretch out that honeymoon period much longer than maybe 6 months. Maybe they just do it indefinitely. And that to me that's a holiday. That's not really remote work and living. To me, remote work and living is you're going somewhere else, anywhere, wherever it is, and you're working there. An example of this is 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I went to another city. It's about a 7 hour train ride from where I am now, properly far away. And I worked there. I worked so basically from morning until mid-afternoon. Then after that, I would enjoy the sort of nightlife of that region, which was fun. And that's kind of like the whole lifestyle is. If I wanted to, for example, there's a place not far from me called Shangri-La. You guys might know the hotel chain Shangri-La. It's based on an actual place, which I think loosely translates to heaven on earth. It is insanely beautiful. I'm trying to convince my wife to go there again because it's insane. It's like rolling green fields, snow-capped mountains, wild horses. It's wild. It's crazy.
What country is it part of?
China. It's in China, in
Oh, okay.
specifically Yunnan province, close to Tibet, over on that side. So yeah, it's a cool place, and I really want to go back there, and I'd love to do the whole remote work living thing there for a couple of weeks, just to really enjoy it. But that's something sort of difficult to do, which gets me onto the main points of today's topics, which I'll deep dive into in a second. We'll have a bit of conversation about. Um, so I guess when working remotely, what are the kinds of jobs, and this is a question for you, Bobby, that you could potentially do? If you just thought off the top of your head, what's some jobs you could do remotely?
Well, actually, as I was prepping for this, I was thinking of like what jobs could I do, but now I realize, oh, I actually have done some remote work before. And yeah, so in 2017, for about 5 months, I was living in Calgary, Canada,
Oh yeah,
and I was doing web development. I had my own web development like consulting practice, and
sounds
yeah, I
cool.
did that.
Sweet. Bit of web consulting. That'd be fun. So in the IT sphere or spectrum of work, that's cool. Have you ever done any other sort of work remotely, or is there any like what's like the dream? If you were to like say for example you went to I don't know, what's your favorite Southeast Asian country just randomly
Out of all the Southeast Asian
out of
countries
all of
I've
them?
been to,
Yeah, yeah,
well, I've never been, but I mean, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, those all look really good.
yeah,
Singapore looks great, but from what I've heard, is it used to be the big place for expats to go to, and now it's
yeah.
very expensive
It's hell
because of
expensive.
that.
For that
Yeah.
exact reason. Exactly the same thing happened to Hong Kong. Hong Kong used to be like this place that you could go. Now it's hectically expensive. You just go across the channel over to the mainland of China and things are like 1/5 of the cost. It's crazy how expensive Hong Kong and Singapore. Yeah, Singapore, especially around like Sentosa Island, wildly expensive place, but very nice, very, very beautiful. Lots of great things to do and see over there. Um, I guess a few of the work things that I've seen, most people that I've met who are doing this, and I guess the benefit of being in this situation is that I meet other people who are out and about doing their thing. Because a lot of the time I work out of a cafe. I don't always work here at home locked away. Sometimes I'll go down to a cafe that I think is going to be quiet and I'll do my work from there and meet some people. And the type of work that most people are doing is either in finance or IT. They're really the two main ones. And some
Yeah,
of
that
them
makes
are
sense because you can do those remotely pretty easily.
pretty easy, yeah. So you see a lot of people doing like stock trading or crypto trading. They'll be doing that during the day. They'll, have a coffee. They've got news over here on their phone, and then their iPad or whatever they've got, PC, MacBook, whatever, is doing the main trades there, which is pretty interesting. Bit risky. I've considered it more times than I'd like to admit to do stock trading or crypto trading on a daily basis, and I just can't bring myself to it. I can't bring myself to do it. I don't know if I'm smart enough for it or I don't know. I feel like I'm just more of a lazy investor in that case. But as far as IT stuff goes, I've done lots of different IT jobs before to sort of get things going and pay the bills. That's but yeah, I don't think I've ever really given enough of a hard go to trading before, mainly because like I said, I don't know if I'm really smart enough to do it. But Bobby, what kind of have you done a little bit of trading before to get through and maybe earn a little bit of extra side cash?
Yeah, so I have done a little bit of trading. I've lost money trading. Yeah, it's not for everyone. My big claim to fame was I was trading leveraged ETFs.
Yep.
So when you have a ETF that every day at the I can't remember if it's the end of the day or the beginning of the next day, they have to redo it so that it's still at 3 times leverage. So if it goes up even more than that, you would like short sell and then they would have to go down. So I was doing that, and in paper trading, I made a good amount of money, but that's all paper trading, so it's not real.
Right.
When it came to actually trading it, uh, I lost my ass. It was not good.
So this is what I'm worried about. I feel like my heart is bigger than my brain, and I'd probably get a little bit too emotional about trading, and that's obviously from what I've read anyway. That's not the way to do it, which is why I kind of stay away from trading and just stick to dollar cost averaging uh,
Oh yeah, the
everything.
psychology of trading is very important. I went through a lot of emotions when I was day trading.
Yeah, I'd rather avoid all of that. But I think what other sort of jobs are there that you could potentially do uh, working overseas? I mean, there's obviously the physical ones that you could do. You could do like tour guiding for, other expats or tourists speaking the language that you speak rather than the language of the country that you're in. Um, there's all sorts of, you could do teaching. There's always English teachers are always far and few between. That's definitely the most popular one over here where I am, as well as there's a lot of English teachers in Thailand and Vietnam who they basically just teach English and they get paid pretty well for the countries that they're in. But it's for me, it's more about focusing on making because I'm from Australia and I'll obviously go back to Australia at some point, and my bills are in Australian dollars. I need to make Australian dollars to pay those bills. So earning money in like RMB or um, baht or whatever it is in the other countries. Um, their currency names, I can't justify making money in those currencies because it just won't pay the bills. So I think another good way to do this, and this is going to sound, I'm going to get blamed for being a boomer again, which is going to be, I think, a recurring theme of this podcast. There are
Yeah,
other
just
options.
embrace it. You are a boomer, DZ.
I'm just gonna take it. I'm a massive boomer. Um, the other idea that I had and something that I've done is when I was in Australia, I basically went hard, super hard at buying assets in Australia, so Australian property primarily, as well as stocks that paid a dividend and putting as much money into those and then running them as rentals while living overseas was a massive saving grace for me. That's really what enabled me to be able to build a business and survive without having to have the pressure of, I really need to make some money. Because if you've got a few properties that are positive gearing, that extra $200 maybe that hits your bank account really makes a difference. That is what really gets you ahead. And it's not about the capital gains unless you want to sell your property and then sit on, a whole bunch of cash and savings, which to be honest, I have very little cash. It's probably 5% of my entire net worth. I don't focus on cash at all. Everything that I have is in an asset. And that's usually property, stocks, or crypto. These days, crypto. I've been going pretty hard at the crypto recently with the discounted prices. So, the next sort of topic that I had there, apart from the work that you can do, is what are some of the countries that you could live in? Now, I was talking to an Australian friend of mine who's recently just moved to the US, very close to where you are, Bobby. And I think you've actually
Oh yes, I
spoken
know who
to
you're
him.
talking about.
He did it the complete opposite way of what most people do, and definitely completely opposite to what I've done. Which he moved from Australia with his whole family to the US. Call him crazy, but he's doing really well. He's actually smashing it out there. He's got lots of work coming in.
Yeah, I'm really happy for him. It seems like he just jumped with both feet and yeah, he landed.
Yeah, man. It's so good. I'm super happy for him because I love seeing those like success stories. I've got another mate who he was in Australia. in Brisbane as well. He's from the same city. He moved to Bali, and he basically he had a bit of cash from when he was in Australia, which goes a long way when you're in somewhere in Indonesia. And he bought a shipping container boutique hotel. Now, this is a very weird business, but it was about
So the hotel is the container?
yeah. So it was about 5 years ago. So he bought it's a hotel in a shipping container. So he bought it's a villa in a container. So you buy them
So
from
just one
China,
unit then?
just one unit. Yeah. So but it's
Okay.
a villa, so it's like pretty large. But anyway, it's got a few bedrooms in it. You buy it flat packed in a shipping container. You buy it from China and they'll ship it over to Indonesia. They get it off the boat, you get a truck, and you bring it up to wherever you have land. So in Bali, you can't, as an Australian, buy land. You can only sort of freehold rent it. It's the same situation in China. You can never really own the land unless you are either Chinese, or in Indonesia, you can only own it if you are Indonesian, um, indefinitely. So he has like I think it's a 50 or 60 year lease, freehold lease on it, which is fine because he's just doing it to make money. Uh, Cost him 60 grand for this villa, and he rents it out on Airbnb. And he's replicated that. He's now got nine of them. So he's bought
Wow.
all of the adjacent land. Yeah, he's done really well out of it. He bought all the adjacent land. He's got nine of them. They look out over a cliff down towards a beach. Looks beautiful. I haven't seen it yet. He's invited me over 1,000 times, and I'd love to go. I just haven't had the chance yet. Um,
Yeah, that
but
sounds amazing.
yeah, dude.
So were they already built when they came from China, or did
No,
he
no.
have to build them?
No, no, you have to put them together, but it's like a giant
Okay.
IKEA set. So he said it was super easy. All he needed was a hammer, a screwdriver, or a drill, and a couple of measuring bits to make sure it's level. But he hired
That sounds
help.
awesome.
Yeah, he hired help, obviously because he couldn't get it done himself. He comes from an IT background and economics background, so he wasn't going to be out there building villas. I can tell you right now. But yeah, I mean, pretty cool. He ended up also doing the same thing with a microbrewery. So he's got the villas up the top of the hill, and then the bottom of the hill, he's got a microbrewery now. So all of
Also in a
this,
shipping container, I guess.
yeah, yeah, dude, of course, yeah, yeah, straight out of a shipping container. So he was for that one, he was actually looking for investors. And if I'd had more money at the time, I would have invested. But just because the amount he was asking for, I didn't have cash on hand, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, he's got this business there. He's got the hotels. He's got the hospitality thing going on, the food and the drink. It's a pretty good setup. Does live bands. He's got, live music and stuff for the people. He's got a restaurant for people at the villas to go and visit. And it's on an island that doesn't have a lot of stuff on it. So it's kind of like a secluded boutique experience that he's built on this island. And it's incredible foresight to be able to think that far ahead to say, like, I'm going to do this and it'll go well. Um, and it has gone well for him. So I guess that's another option for anyone out there is to if you have cash on hand and you want to move out of wherever it is to go live wherever, Bali, Thailand, wherever, you can potentially buy a property. And I've looked at this actually as well in Thailand while we're discussing countries. In Chiang Mai, you can buy a villa, so a four-bedroom villa with a gym, pool, the whole kit. Basically, it's about 100,000 Australian dollars. For anyone in the US, that's roughly 75, 80,000 dollars. It's cheap, cheap as chips. You get a full-blown house and you own it forever in Thailand. Crazy. So yeah, that's I guess that's sort of like the some of the potential countries you could live in. Um, I'd love to hear your thoughts though, Bobby, if you've sort of heard of anyone going to any of the other places. There's obviously some big celebrities who've gone to Japan, for whatever reasons, but I don't know about the whole setup there. So I don't know. Yeah, tell me a bit. Have you sort of heard of any others?
I didn't know about any celebrities moving to Japan. Like, I guess PewDiePie.
That's who I was referring to. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been going there as tourists because their currency has just been
It's tanked.
terrible
It's
lately. So
tanked.
the
Yeah.
exchange rate is great for foreigners. But also I heard that the locals are pushing back against that and they don't really like the tourists anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, tourists can sort of ruin a place. But the luxury market over there, if anyone's in the business of buying like luxury watches and bags and stuff, it's basically super cheap. You can buy like a Rolex for I think it's like 30% cheaper than anywhere else, which is crazy because you'd think that would be like a global currency, but it's not, weirdly. So they're selling at a massive
Yeah,
discount.
cool.
Next sort of topic that I wanted to cover here was around tax setups. And for this, I can only really talk about my own tax setup because it's the only one that I really know about, um, which is basically it's super simple. And I've run this past accountants, obviously my own accountant, to make sure that it's perfectly legal, and it is. I'm doing nothing dodgy here at all. So the way I do it is I have my business in Australia. It's an Australian registered business. That business is registered for GST and I pay GST. When I pay myself as an employee of the business and I pay myself in Australian dollars and I pay income tax on that income. Now, there are other ways you can do this, which are slightly sketchy, which is where you don't end up paying income tax at all. But please check with your accountant, not financial advice at all, so that you can make sure you're doing it legally. But that's how I do it. It's probably one of the most common questions I've been asked over since being here. I've met a whole bunch of people from the US and some Canadians, some Russians even, and a Spanish dude and a Turkish guy, and they all ask me the same question, like, "Oh, you've got this business in Australia and you live in China. That's kind of crazy. Um, how do you pay tax? Like, do you pay Chinese tax?" And I'm like, "No, I don't even know how Chinese tax works. I've never looked at it." Um, but yeah, I pay myself from my business and I pay income tax on that. There is better ways to do this. Like you could set up the business in Dubai or Cyprus or something and pay less tax that way. But I'm not at that level of income. So I don't think it's worthwhile me exploring those options yet. Another sort of question that I've had come up a bit as well is around how do you stay in a specific country for such a long time? Um, this was one of the main reasons why like me and my wife, decided to move to China is because we could stay here for a substantial amount of time. Obviously, my wife, being Chinese, can stay here as long as she likes, and a permanent resident of Australia, she can stay in Australia as long as she likes. For me, as an Australian citizen, I can stay in Australia as long as I like. I could stay in Hong Kong for a very long time, and lots of other countries that are part of my passport benefits. China, unfortunately, is not on that list. I can stay here for up to a month unless I get a family residency visa, which is exactly what I got. It renews every 3 years, and it cost roughly $200 Australian to get that visa. It's a super easy process, super quick compared to the Australian version of this visa. And it's fairly similar in other places. Like in Bali, you can stay there on a working visa, or you can get a business visa, or even they have a new visa, I believe, called a startup visa. It's very similar to the Thai startup visa. So for anyone wondering, there is a visa in Thailand as well, where you can basically go in as a startup business and you register the business in wherever your country is, as well as in Thailand, and you get this like visa free period, which I think is 2 years. Don't quote me on that. Have a look and maybe talk to an immigration specialist. But there's options out there. You just need to do your research on how to get this done. Uh, for me in the US, if I wanted to move to the US, I can. I, I mean, I can work in the US for a period of time as an Australian citizen, but you then eventually have to either apply for citizenship or get out. That's basically how it works. It's not too hard to get a citizenship in the US though. Um, as an Australian anyway. Same in Australia. It's not too hard to become a citizen in Australia if you, or a dual citizen even, if you're from the US or UK or wherever.
So in China, do you have to move back to Australia every 3 years?
No, I don't have to go back to Australia very often at all. My wife, though, on a permanent residency, has a different set of rules. So to keep her permanent residency, she needs to be in Australia for 2 out of 5 years as a collective, which is an interesting setup. It's weird that she has to go back to Australia and I don't and I'm not a Chinese citizen. Like it's just such a backwards thing. But yeah, that's the rules we live by, which is why we are now after almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in April. Well, actually, it's 3 years in May. So we're moving back to Australia in April to keep her permanent residency, which was again why I bought that property at the Gold Coast because we thought if we're going to go back to Australia, we want to live by the beach. So that's what we're doing. So I think we've sort of covered lifestyle benefits already. I guess the main ones here is the freedom of working and traveling on your own time. That's really the biggest benefit for me, is the major lifestyle benefit. The other one, obviously, the cost of living. We've covered the cost of living prices, uh, so we don't really need to touch that unless you have any sort of questions around these topics, Bobby.
Yeah, so have you looked into Malaysia at all? Because I know people talk about like Thailand, Vietnam as really cheap, but what about Malaysia?
Malaysia is more or less, it's somewhere in between, I would say, Thailand and Singapore, um, kind of geographically as well, weirdly. But as far as cost goes, it's not as expensive as Singapore. Singapore is off the chain. But yeah, I haven't. I went to Malaysia and it was okay. It wasn't overly expensive. It was pretty much on par with everywhere else in Southeast Asia. Um, the main reason I didn't sort of stay there though is because it just wasn't what I particularly wanted as far as a living experience goes. There's a lot of places in Malaysia that I went to anyway, and I'm sure I'm incorrect about this. It was more just like big cities. And I know being in China and saying like, Malaysia's just big cities is very ironic because China is just big cities. But once you sort of China's such a massive place that you can go to a desert, then you can go to the snow where it snows on the beach, and then you can go to like mountains and lakes and other beaches that are like almost as I won't say as nice as Australia because I don't think anywhere has as nice beaches as Australia, but pretty good beaches. So it's such a massive place that you can get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, which is something I definitely like to do to see the real country. But that's sort of the main reason I didn't want to stay in Malaysia for an overly long amount of time. The good thing though about Malaysia is that they have very diverse food options. So because it's such a mixed match of culture of Southeast Asians all being in one place, similar to Singapore, they have like a maybe like a more Indian area. Then they have a maybe like a Pakistani style area, more like Arabic type of food choices. They have Chinese choices. They have like full Thai areas. They have the Indonesian stuff. It's a really interesting sort of place. The only other place I've been to for a longer period of time is the Philippines. Philippines is definitely more expensive than China. It's about halfway between China and Australia in price. Uh, Cost of rent is pretty cheap. Wages can be hard if you're working for a company in Philippines, and most of them are like RDOs, which is like the remote desk office buildings where you just work for a company that's overseas as like a call center person, which is not that fun. But not that I've done that, but I can imagine just from being there that it's not the funnest thing in the world. But yeah, there are options there though. Like for example, their internet is generally pretty good. Um, most of Southeast Asia is pretty good though, to be honest. Most of Asia has really good internet. But I'm comparing it to Australia, which has like famously one of the shittiest internet connections in the world. So there is that. But I think without sort of going too far down the rabbit hole of different places and the cost of living in those places, uh, one of the last sort of topics here that I wanted to talk about was moving with kids. Now, I know obviously, Bobby, you're not quite at that point in life yet of having kids and or thinking of moving out of the country with kids. But for me, who has a kid now, although he's not very old, he's only 6 months old, this has been a big point in life recently to think about. And please interject here with any questions you have about this that you might want to know for the future um, of living remotely with a kid. The main thing is that it's really difficult for the first, like, I would say the first little while before they can walk and talk and know what's going on. There's a period of from 0 to probably 1 year old, although my kid's not 1 year old yet, where it's difficult to go places because they have to be babied because they're babies. Um, but after that, I think that 1 to maybe 5 years old period is pretty good to move because they don't really need to go to a school yet. They can go to preschool, but they don't have to. You can kind of do whatever you like with them at that point, and I think that's the happy medium. Having a kid overseas, though, which is we did have our kid over here in China, was an experience. Um, Hospitals are obviously very different to Australia, um, mainly in communication and process. So, because there are so many people here, it's a different process to what it is in Australia, where there's basically no one. The whole population of Australia has the population of the city I'm living in, for an example. And this is a small city. It's not even one of the biggest cities that they have. So as a comparison, you have to have different processes to put people through to get the services they need. As far as price is concerned, though, it was pretty good. It was pretty cheap. It's about 1/10 of the cost of what it would have cost in Australia. I've heard people saying putting out all sorts of crazy numbers in Australia for hospitals and all the pre-pregnancy checks and all the rest of it. That's hell expensive in Australia. I don't know what it's like in the US, but I imagine fairly similar, having some sort of background info of the US. But yeah, I mean, traveling and doing the whole digital nomad thing with a kid, it's not that hard. The other week when we went to that other city, we brought our kid along, 7 hour journey on a train. He was fine. We put him in like a it's like a sling thing that you put on yourself, and they just sit in there, and he was just like just chilling. He was asleep a lot of the time because he's 6 months old, so he didn't really move or do anything. He's sort of chilling there, had a few cries, had a bit of milk. That's about it. It was pretty basic. So it was just like being at home, but we're on a train. So that was super easy. Obviously, I couldn't work on the train because the internet was cutting in and out as we went through mountains. But yeah, I think it's not as bad as people say. And that was sort of the main point I wanted to make here is that a lot of people say it's like, it's impossible to do this whole thing of moving to Bali or moving to Dubai even or Japan or whatever with your kid. It's really not. It's it's actually fun. It's kind of fun in a weird way that you get to have this freedom and show this kid some experiences that they would never get in Australia or maybe the US or wherever it is, because every country has its own culture and its own differences. And having those experiences, if they remember it or not, doesn't matter. It's part of them. They'll understand the vibe further down the line of freedom. And I think that's quite important. Over to you, Bobby. I think you've got a whole bunch of questions. I've been talking for 56 minutes straight. Um, so yeah, let's hand
Yeah,
over a bit.
so with having kids remotely, I have a sister who was a missionary in Kathmandu, Nepal, and she had one kid in Nepal, and while they were living there, two kids moving back to the US. So was there a specific reason you had a kid in China, or were you just like, well, we're here, so let's just have it here?
We did talk about it, and the main reason was again the cost and the facilities. So the facilities over here, despite maybe popular belief, are insanely good. They are incredibly good hospitals. If you go to a private hospital, if you go to a public hospital, it is an absolute factory. And we did go there to test it out, see what it was like. There's people lining up down the hallways. There's there's not enough rooms for people, so they put beds outside rooms and you just lie there and be sick or give birth out in the hallway. And that wasn't what we were sort of about. That was terrible. So we went to a private hospital. The cost was obviously more, but it was honestly the whole thing probably around 10 grand Australian. So pretty cheap in all reality. So it's basically about the cost and the facilities. Um, the facilities in the hospital that we went to were incredible. I haven't seen anything like that in Australia, and we did have a look in Australia before, like while we were in Australia, we did check out some of the maternity hospitals around Brisbane to see if maybe it was a better option. And it was basically the same. So we thought, okay, well, if we're going to save ourselves $20,000, we might as well do that and use that 20 grand for something else. So yeah, having a kid's expensive, basically.
Yeah, and what about like the citizenship and the passport? Because I know with the kid that she had in Nepal, they had tons of issues with that.
Yeah, there was some interesting points here. So because Felix, my son, was born in China, he would have immediately been born with a Chinese citizenship, and then we would have had to apply for a citizenship to Australia. We didn't really want this trouble though, so I did a lot of research, and the way we did it was we, when he was born without identification, just, which is maybe a very Chinese way of doing things. But because he has an English written name, his name's Felix, they would not accept that as a name on a Chinese citizenship certificate. So on his birth certificate, it has his name in English, his actual name. That's the only ID he had for about 6 months. So 5 days after he was born, I uh, did an application through to Immigration Australia. Um, we went through the whole process, did the photos, all the rest of it, submit it, and 6 months later, he is an Australian citizen. So now he has his Australian citizenship. For 6 months, he was a ghost, though. He had no ID at all, which was kind of cool, actually, I think. The reason we went to that city 7 hours away is because to apply for his passport, we had to physically go to that consulate general. which is there's none in the city I'm in because it's too small of a city. So we had to go to that city, which is, yeah, 7 hours away. The next closest city that has a consulate general is, I think it's like 12 hours. It's just too far, maybe 8 or 9. Can't remember. It's further away though. And the city we went to has pandas, which is cool. So we went and saw the pandas as well while we were there. That was basically the process. The Australian passport costs, let me think, 300 and something dollars for a 5-year passport for the kid, which I think is expensive, but there's $100 processing fee and a few $100 of this, and they just add it up in Australia. I was like, oh yeah, I remember how this works now. One bill plus this, plus this, plus this. The
Yeah.
citizenship
So
though,
once he got the
yeah.
passport, did you have to go to Chinese immigration to like register him then?
Well, we haven't got his passport yet, so we've done the
Oh,
application,
okay.
and we have to wait because I only went there like a week or two ago. So we now need to wait up to a month, I think, or 5 weeks, I think they said is the average processing time to get the passport. And then once he has his passport, then we can go to the Chinese immigration and get him the same visa that I'm on, the you know family relationship permanent residency.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So another thing I wanted to ask you about was expat communities, because I've heard that they're a big thing in Mexico with American expat communities.
yeah.
Have you been to any of like Australian expat communities?
There's there's one other Australian in the city that I'm living in. So nah, I haven't gone to any meetups. There's like a so over here there's WeChat. WeChat is like the major chat everything application. Um, there are expat groups in this city of like Americans and Russians and whatever. There's heaps of people here who are expats. Um, not heaps. There's probably 500 total. But I haven't gone to any of their meetups because I found most of those people in that chat group to me to be a bit weird. So I just didn't bother going along. So how I met people here, made friends. You've known me long enough. I'm pretty outgoing with people.
Yeah.
I'll talk to a brick wall if I have to. I'll have my conversation heard. So I'd go to cafes and bars and met this one dude who he was is a Chinese dude who had lived in Mexico, and he was like, "Oh, I'm doing this like taco burrito night here at my cafe. We're gonna get some Mexican beers and some sangria and stuff." I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm down for that, dude." So I went home after. I was like, "Ange, I'm going to this party," and she's like, "What are you? Why?" Because Ange is a complete opposite. She's like super introvert, hates talking to people. So, whereas me, I'm like butterflying around like an idiot. So yeah, I went there to that party and I met a whole bunch of really cool people. I met these Russians who are dope. Um, an American dude who's like a vinyl DJ, and I love vinyl. I'm like obsessed with vinyl, so I've talked to
Yeah,
him
that's
heaps.
perfect for you.
Yeah, I've talked to him heaps and heaps. Obviously the Mexican Chinese dude, heaps. He's moved to another city now, which is sad. But um, yeah, I never really bothered with the expat communities because I found them to be a little bit strange. I prefer to meet people in real life and get to know them that way rather than sort of being introduced as expats.
Okay. So if you didn't have a Chinese wife, how feasible is like island hopping? So in Southeast Asia, say like do a stint in Thailand, and then once your visa is up there, go to Vietnam, then after that, Malaysia, and then just like keep on circling around until your visas renew. Or like here in America, if we do like go to the Cayman Islands and then maybe go to Bahamas when that ends. Yeah, how was that?
You can do that. So uh, you just have to look at the holiday visa arrangements because the way to do it would be to just apply for holiday visas. and how many holiday visas you can apply for within a 1 year period. So if you can't go to somewhere for that long, like you obviously have to plan out your time pretty well. But as an Australian, you can go to Thailand for a pretty long time. You can go to I think in Hong Kong, you can go for 3 months. In Thailand, I think it's 3 or 6 months, depending on which visa you get. Vietnam, I think it's 1 month, but it might be three. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. Uh, South Korea, again, another 1 month. China, 1 month. Um, so there's enough places. Like you can go to Laos as well. Laos is just next to Thailand, Vietnam, and China. Again, 1 month. You could probably go to India if you want to go down that sort of direction. Um, or you can go over the other side of Asia and go more towards the Arabic countries and go to Turkey, for example. You can go there for a month. Um, it really depends on how far you want to fly, and the flights are what's going to cost real money. Flights and hotels are the most expensive thing, if you want to do it that way. Um, we thought about it, but yeah, it's just tricky. It's more tricky for Ange because not so much the cost, but because of uh, Ange's citizenship, her passport is Chinese, and China can't go to many places for very long periods of time. But Australians can. We can go to lots of places. Our passport's pretty good. So yeah, long story short, yes, you can island or country hop between those different regions. Alrighty, I think the last topic that I had here to talk about was kids' education and lifestyle. I haven't really got to that point yet in my life. However, I have spoken to a few people about this particular topic and how they're doing it and sort of how I'm going to do this as well. So my plan, our family plan is to go back to Australia for the next 3 years and then to come back over to here. We have looked at schools, not high schools or primary schools, just the international kindergartens. So our plan is to come back to here for a 1 year or maybe 2 years tops period and put our kid into an international kindergarten. There are most countries, and when I had a look around, there's international schools, kindergartens, schools, high schools, whatever it is, all the way through that you can send your kids to. And they're actually really, really good. Like these places, they'll teach the kids multiple languages. They'll teach them the local language, whichever country it is you're in, as well as English, um, which is nice. And they'll do the lessons in primarily in English. So even if there are local kids in those classes, they will do the full class in English. So they're still getting that school option. There is the other option of homeschooling, but I don't trust myself to homeschool anyone, to be honest. So I'd like to skip out on that option entirely. I think my wife would be great at homeschooling, but I don't think she'd be too keen on it. Um,
He's done some
so
teaching before, right?
yeah, she used to, but she's done a lot of English teaching, off and on. So she's kind of doing it casually while we're over here to get a bit of, we called it pocket money, but for here it's actually a pretty good wage. And we use that to just to buy food and go to cocktail bars and stuff. This is before the kid, obviously. There's been no cocktail bars as of late. But yeah, it's there's options for education. We had a look in Bali. There's international schools. We had a look in Japan as well. We'd love to go to Japan for a longer period of time. And there's some really good international schools there. Uh, Same in Singapore. There's some fantastic international schools. Need to keep in mind though, they come with a much higher price tag than what you may pay uh, in as a local of the country. But sometimes you just got to bite the bullet um, and pay the fee. It's still cheaper than school in Australia though. So like I've had a look at high school fees in Australia. Oh, man, I got to make some serious. It sort of starts at around $30,000 a year for not a public school, but for private schooling in Australia, which is definitely something that I'm passionate about. So yeah, well, I'll cross that bridge in the future when I get to it. But for now, we're that's the plan. Go back to Australia, continue working remotely, but not outside of Australia. And yeah, I mean, the ultimate dream, I've had this conversation a few times, and this might vibe with you as well, Bobby. The ultimate dream that I've got is to do a world tour and to follow the Formula One calendar. So, luckily, the Formula One calendar starts in Australia, and then to follow, like work and watch F1. So every country that F1 goes to, you bounce around to that country, you work during the week, on the weekend, you head over to the racetrack, you do you go and enjoy the race, and then you go to the next country, do a year of F1 calendar. Comes
Yeah,
with a
that would be
price
pretty
tag,
awesome. I've seen some videos on that, and yeah, it can be pretty expensive, but yeah, it's
especially.
doable.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's doable. I think like there's some places you go to Monaco, for example, and you're up your ass for fees. It's the hotels there are gonna be so expensive because unfortunately I'm not royalty and I can't afford. I'd probably stay in a backpackers or something. But I'd love to do that with the whole fam. I think that'd be amazing. To like you go, I can't even remember the map now. It's like you go from Australia to Abu Dhabi. Can't remember. And
I don't know.
then, yeah, I can't remember. There's some of the Arab countries, and then there's some of the Asian countries, then some more Arab countries, and they go over to um, the European places, and then to the UK, and then to the US, and then back to, I think, Qatar is the next one.
Yeah,
Can't remember.
Qatar is today.
It's today. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that's like the ultimate dream for me to live and work remotely is to take the whole family around on drag them around the planet on an F1 tour if they like it or not.
That
Um,
would be pretty awesome.
yeah,
And hey, hit me up. Like
yeah,
Austin's 4 hours away from me.
absolutely, man. I'd love to do that. Probably won't be anytime soon. I need to sort out a few work things first, but I mean, that would be the most incredible life experience. I mean, if you had like a bucket list item, if you had a bucket list place to live and work from for a period of time, or even if it's the same idea like the F1 calendar, what's like your ideal work travel situation?
Ideal. I don't know really. I haven't traveled all that much, but from like the research that I've done, I think the Cayman Islands would be really nice because it's just gorgeous. I mean, it would also be easy to convince friends to come visit me because it's just an amazing vacation spot.
Yep.
But also, of course, like the taxes,
Yep.
really great.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
financial freedom, the financial privacy, the financial protection. It's like you can't get better than the Cayman Islands. That is literally what they're known for.
Hmm.
And yeah, it just seems like a great place to live. A little expensive, but yeah.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some. I think I think it would be good, actually. And how do you get the tax benefits? Do you have to be a citizen? Like, would you have to get a dual citizenship with the Cayman Islands, or how does it work?
From what I've seen is you just set up a company there and then just have everything under the company and the Caymans will protect you for all that.
But how do you get a company if you're not a citizen or permanent resident? Does it work the same way as
That's
like
what they're known
Dubai?
for. There's more companies in the Cayman Islands than there are residents.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, basically every country has somewhere where you can register islands and register companies in the Cayman Islands.
That sounds amazing. It sounds like it would be such a den of evil, though. Like how much dodgy stuff is going on in the Cayman Islands. I don't know. Who
Possibly.
knows? Possibly. Who knows? Good on them, though. I've seen a lot of crypto people in the Cayman Islands, so now that makes a lot of sense, actually. They're either in like Dubai or the Cayman Islands, actually.
Yeah, that's
That's, yeah.
specifically what made me look into it because there's like I've said many times, the credit market in Bitcoin is very interesting right now. But the thing is, like, I live in Texas, and not all of that is available to me because, for whatever reason, politicians don't think that's okay, or I'm
Right.
gonna hurt myself or something.
Yeah,
But in
right.
the Cayman Islands, they're just like, yeah,
Yeah,
do it.
go for it. Yeah, go
Yeah, one
nuts.
of the big loan companies, Ledin, is based out of the Cayman Islands. I think a couple others are moving to the Cayman Islands. So yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap this pod up. We've actually somehow been able to stretch it over the 1 hour period, which is great. It's been a pleasure as always talking with you, Bobby. And next week we are going to be covering in detail, and hopefully Ash will be joining us from his new house, the Australian property market and investing in all of its different methods of glory. Should be a good pod to listen to. I think we'll cover some really good topics there. Definitely something that I'm very passionate about. So hopefully I don't overtalk my time and stay within my lanes slightly. I'm learning, everyone. Okay, I'm trying to do my best. So
Yeah, especially since Ash has the new property.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah, that'll
perfect
be a
timing.
really good